Hi, this is Riho Moani, and I'm doing my VoD for the Harrisburg University Varsity Esports program. And for my VoD review, I did a scrim yesterday, and instead of submitting that scrim, I'm gonna VoD review the scrim, and I'm gonna explain what I was thinking about and what I was doing as the video sort of plays on.
Ryan, how good are you? Yeah, because like Orbit is in.
Alright, so right now, before we start out, we're on Ilios. This is the second map in the set. We lost the first map, so we're going in with that mentality that this is sort of a new map and whatnot. Last map happened. So right now, I'm just asking them if any of them play Widow, because we are on Ilios Ruins, and this is our first time scrimming as a team. This was This scrim was done on the 6th of April, and it is right now the 7th of April as I am reviewing this. Um, so right now, Orbit cannot be able to play Widow, and Ren tells me he can. So I decide it would be better if we just play with our standard dive.
It's a really good Widow run. Do you play Widow? Because if you don't, then yeah, let you go clean dive. Yeah.
So nothing really happens right now. Me and Jay, we start talking about Prez. Um, so on King's Row, our tank line weren't in sync. So Prez was overextending a lot, and Slurps wasn't able to support him. And Prez was rather quiet because their first time scrimming, so he didn't really call it out. So because of that, nobody could follow up. So also, I'm just gonna say for the VOD review, I'm doing Ilios and Dorado, two maps we won in the set. Uh, Simply because I felt like our synergy was on point and we were talking a lot in those maps compared to like the other maps. And we played five maps in the series and we won three of them. So Ilios and Dorado being two of them. Um, so with them like not being so with those so with no Widow, we decided to just go with our dive comp, and I'm just gonna basically skip until like the round starts because nothing happens really.
Yep. Alright. So Slurps, I want you to try to sort of peel for me and Jay. I'm gonna try to. Yeah, they are. Let's go left.
All right, so with the Widow call out, I mean everybody did it without me calling it out, but we all called out "Let's go left," and essentially the reason we called out left was, or I called out "Let's go left" along with Jay, was because if we played on the right side in the open, the Widow would have free reign on us, and essentially with the left side, we'd have the ability of sort of closing in gap without like exposing ourselves to the Widow. So right now, I was actually really passive because I thought that, oh, they might because I was worried about Jay. I didn't want them to sort of jump Jay. So I stayed passive at the beginning because I'm trying to peel for Jay as much as I can to keep him alive.
Monkey, monkey, monkey one, monkey one. Oh shit.
So I actually sort of dropped on point a little bit early there. It was because mainly they weren't really pushing Jay, and their Winston died, sort of like their main tank, their initiator. So I sort of felt like Jay was safe. So using that, I decided to jump on point and sort of help Slurps out on point. So right there with the Diva taken out too, my thought process was that hey, their tank line is gone, that we should be able to push since we still had our Diva back at mech. However, though, really I sort of overextended for no reason, and their Widow actually kills me in just in a second. Because of this, where it would have been smarter if I just decided to play point, because they didn't have any tanks left, so nobody would have been able to push in. Obviously, I realized this mistake way too late, and their widow was able to punish me because of it.
I got Zen.
Nice, nice. Winnable, 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 winnable.
We got I almost have chance. I almost have chance.
Barrier on point. On Mercy. I'm jumping on Mercy.
Come on, Winston.
I'm on Mercy on point. Mercy on point.
Oh, I almost hit. Nice loot. Genji. Nice.
On point.
Widow's top
Player,
left,
player,
Widow's top left. Get deep out of mech, get deep out of mech.
Winston double.
Alright, we have...
Get ready to dive. I think you're close.
Yep, I have blade here too.
I got the poison.
I'm low. Orbit swings back to us. I got an orb on you, Orbit.
She has walls right now, be careful.
Yep, I'm ready to blaze here. If you want to dive in.
Oh yeah, monkey get out.
Oh, I got fucking destroyed, dude. My bad.
Good point.
Sorry.
Bad here.
No, I'm on point. I'm on Genji. Genji.
Yeah, you couldn't heal for me. Fine.
So realizing after Jay dies and the two tanks sort of turned around, I felt like I was in immediate danger, so I just decided to run away. So I did hold on to, I held on to beat because they weren't really using any like deep, they didn't really have any DPS ult, so I felt that beat would have been useless. I should have dropped beat here and sort of just focused on keeping Jay and our tanks healthy. But I realized this way too late, and I decided to use in the next fight for Blade, because it didn't look like they were gonna use Blade at all.
Oh shit! No way in hell.
Widow left, back left. Inside.
I'm on point.
Huge Orbit. You get Saw? 12 targets. You're only alive.
Yeah. I want to save beat for a blade, because we don't have crimes anymore.
It's gonna be a long time until we have blade.
Nah, he's been on Genji from the beginning. He probably has blade
Yeah,
now.
and he used it at the start.
Oh, you mean
Oh, he did?
air blade? Okay.
Yeah.
I hit him twice. You can kill him, Orbit. It's deflecting.
So essentially now Jay hit him twice, doing quite a bit of damage, like with one of it or both being a crit. And essentially I just speed boosted Orbit so he could finish off the kill. Now, as Orbit said, he started deflecting so Orbit couldn't, but our tank sort of jumped in. Prez did jump in to sort of help him. Oh yeah, and I've been calling these guys by their names, so just so I know, just so when I say their names, you know who I'm talking about. Ren is our Genji, Prez is our Winston, Jay is the other support, Orbit is the hit scan DPS, and Slurps is our off tank.
I'm on him. He's lit. He's really lit. He's one. Bottom left. He's on the mid joint.
So obviously, so when I came on a point, I was a little bit worried that I sort of exposed myself. So I ran here in this corner because just in case if one of them tries to jump me, um, I would sort of be a little bit safer. Now the blade immediately came up, but I was in the motion of like going into the corner and then I was gonna come back out. The reason why I dropped the beat immediately it was because we had a tracer and Genji can slash and then dash through insta killing tracer within 1 second. So even though Orbit did die to the Tracer, for Jay and whatnot, like I wanted to drop the beat immediately to keep those guys alive. Though sadly I couldn't. I tried running back to save Jay, but I was too slow, and that really like hurt us.
Yeah, monkey can die here.
Great job. Thank you.
So I sort of booped him there so he wouldn't be able to like fully dash onto somebody. Just push him a little bit out of position from what he was expecting to be at. So obviously, even with all these ults, they actually win the fight. So after beat going down, I actually make a call that hey, I want to switch to Mercy for a couple of reasons. One, their Widow was getting a lot more value than we expected her to, so a res would be able to sort of neglect that. I felt like I was focusing on Jay, like I was focusing on Jay as Lucio, so I was in this position where I wanted to help out our tanks in the front, but I also wanted to help out Jay in the back because, like I said, this was a new team, so our diva wasn't completely synergized with supports. So with the Mercy, I could fly back and forth within seconds of each other as the Guardian Angel cooldown is that low. And I could also like damage boost their DPS. So like we're not just like where it's like where on Lucio where I felt like I was on heal mostly. I could be now actual like damage boosting or healing if needed.
It's not winnable, not winnable.
Zen's on the back right. Zen's in the resi monkey. That's a huge res for them.
I'm switching to Mercy. I'm switching to Mercy.
One more. We need one more. We need one more.
We're not switch.
Maybe we have to go on.
Diva in the Widow middle on the pillar.
Yeah. All right. Dive Widow. 3, 2, 1. Zen's in the back.
Yo, yo, yo. Genji's half. Genji can die. Genji no dash. He can die. He can die.
Can't find him.
Widow, kill this Widow right here.
Head reload.
So right here, this is exactly what I'm talking about for the heals. So as a Lucio, like honestly, I probably wouldn't have been able to get between Jay to the Genji that quick. So now, what's gonna happen here is that I'm gonna pocket Ren, and I'm specifically trying to keep him alive through this. But then shortly after, I focus on helping out Prez, and then I keep both of them alive long enough where they force the Zen to use trance, and then Ren's able to like use a blade right after, and just completely win the fight because of us. Yeah, because of him.
Zen left room, one.
Come on, Zen. Zen's. Oh,
He
they
broke trans, just back up, we cut that.
Someone's on our side.
We used
Yeah,
blade.
two.
We got 2.
I'm dead now.
No heals. You guys have no heals.
I'm
Genji
trying to
back
get
up
down
for a
here.
sec.
Yeah, I'm trying.
You confessed.
Let's contest. We have a lot. We still have time.
Genji on us. Kill
Raise
him.
it down, raise it down.
Yo, Genji down.
Nice. Genji down. Genji down. Monkey on point. Can we get monkey's low, monkey's low, monkey's low. Tracer
Nice
top
booty.
left. Tracer top left.
Zen.
I tried the tracer. She left.
Go Zen.
They switch up Widow. Hold on.
I got tracer. Nice.
Yeah, yeah.
They're resing, they're resing, they're resing that, they're resing that right now.
Yeah.
So they won't ever res
Whatever
this
res.
fight.
Their monkey's diving.
Monkey discorded. He's on me.
Barrier on point.
Yo, yo, monkey can die. Monkey.
So I sort of popped Valk because I saw all of them like pushing in. So I assumed the fight was about to break out from the way everybody was positioned on their team and how we were reacting. So I decided to pop Valk so I could keep everyone healthy if needed and I could keep myself safe. So Slurps and Jay would have like one less thing to worry about.
Monkey, got him.
Monkey's in. Tracer no recall.
Let's
Look
go
at
to
the
Diva.
point duo.
Mercy half, mercy half, mercy half in the back.
On Mercy, on Mercy. Shit, I
Left side, left
fucked
side.
this all.
Use that mag, use that mag.
Barrier on point.
So I never saw Tracer die. I know she blinked out, but I was afraid of the off chance that like the Tracer would come around to kill Jay. So I decided to pocket him for a bit, and I was able to like just to keep him safe because we were actually about to enter the last fight.
Nice, back up the point.
Can't see you, Genji.
Jay,
You're okay.
tell me the
Yeah,
moment
no,
they
yeah,
dive,
Yo,
yo.
yo, yo.
They're resing Genji.
Don't play out too far.
Okay, that's my bad.
So right here, I actually got myself killed. So essentially, because of looking for Jay around, I didn't notice the Tracer actually coming up on me, and it's because that she was able to do quite a bit of damage onto me, before I'm able to fully react. And that got me basically killed, but we were able to win the fight regardless.
Barrier on point.
Nice,
Run,
Ruby.
run, run.
got me.
This is one.
Bombing on point, bombing on point.
Demon no mech.
Tracer no dash on point. Get Mercy. Mercy no.
Mercy one.
Nice, nice.
So I just like to add one thing. I didn't do this because I was sort of like a little bit nervous and whatnot. That I did actually switch to Lucio here, even though it was last fight and I was quite a bit away from Valk. So normally what I do actually do is I switch to Lucio on last fight so I can get the point quicker. So I didn't really do that. Also in the beginning of the next round, you'll see as the round was beginning, I was on Lucio's speed boost and then switched back to Mercy and fly into my team. So that was more like me of a nervous thing, but I just do that normally to sort of abuse the speed boost and the fact that like when you switch characters, all your abilities get reset.
You got a mech?
Nice.
Genji's gone.
Nice.
This played.
Let's go, boys.
Ooh.
Just before the next round begins, let's go in. Anything want to do Orisa for this, or do you want it to stay on dive?
I don't know, like dives, like. Do you guys want to try it? I mean, it's a scrim. It's whatever.
This is the map to do it.
Yeah,
This is the map
let's.
to do it.
All right, so Slurps, go Hog, Orbit, go McCree, and Ren, go Scrum. Or Ren, if you want, you can go Fair. You make that call. I'll trust
I'm
it.
going fair.
So obviously, this is sort of like related to the first round with the Widow thing. I sort of like, since we are a new team, I sort of want everybody to be comfortable. I'm not really a big shot mid-fight caller. I do play a shot calling role, but not a mid-fight caller. So I normally just figure out like if there's like issues where targets, I sort of help out with that. But I mostly just deal with comms and initiations. I don't really deal with target calling, as I normally try to focus on other things than like who to focus on their team, whether it be like ult or if it's something as small as like where we are and is everybody healthy.
I forgot all about the
I'll trust that call.
There's the best on this map.
Yo, Jay, tell me the moment like they jump you, because they'll just talk at you.
Yeah, so this is like sort of like that issue I saw at the end of the first round. I noticed that I was like maybe focusing on like protecting Jay a little bit too hard. So instead I wanted to rely a little bit on Jay for comms. So I asked him, hey, if you could just give me a heads up, it would be better for the team since I could heal them and sort of watch out for myself, which would keep me alive.
Yeah.
Because you're killing quite a bit
They're
of them.
fair too. I'm pretty sure they're on mirror. Oh no, they're in Genji. They're in dive.
I think pharmacy. Yeah.
Dive was pharmacy.
Barrier on point.
Oh, never mind. No, they're not. Okay.
Our barrier's down in 5 seconds.
There's Zenzen.
2 seconds. Go. Barrier's up.
There's one. The rest is dead.
Yo, Genji's on me behind.
Yep, kill him.
Genji's on the line.
So right there and then, all right. So when we went in and I was starting to back off, both of our tanks got really low, and I sort of positioned myself on high ground purposely because I sort of wanted, if the Genji wanted to come kill me, I want him to waste many abilities as he possibly could to empty out his resources, which would make me safer. Also, I started healing the Orisa over the Hog, even though they were both crit, and like honestly, both tanks would have done this, would have been fine. Prez doesn't have a healing ability on Orisa compared to the Roadhog. So essentially, if they decided for whatever reason to just completely jump in, Prez would be more in danger. So essentially, I started healing him to sort of like make sure that he would stay alive no matter what.
Barrier's back up.
There we go. One.
I'm low.
I'm healing.
Chuck ball Genji.
So I just flew up there right next to the Ren, but I didn't really do anything. It was because I felt like he was about to actually take a rocket, so I decided to just stay up there just in case if he did, if he engaged in that Pharaoh 1v, I would be in a position to immediately start helping him out.
I'm back up here.
Genji on the left. Genji on the left.
Ooh, I got right click, dude.
Watch out.
Can you rest?
So I sort of went for this risky res because they were focusing on our tank in the well, not risky, but uh they were focusing on our tanks in the front, so it sort of kept me safe as everybody was a little bit pushed up. Not only that, but the only reason our Pharah really got shot out was because the Zen got a lucky volley, so I knew that if I did res him and go in, not impossible, but the chance of him dying immediately would be low.
Yeah.
And way too deep.
Our barrier's on back left the point.
Genji's playing right side now. Genji's playing right side.
So Zen.
Our barrier's going down. Okay, barrier's back up.
Again. Cartoon.
Huge rabbit.
You even?
They know
I'll
he's
see him.
close. They're resing the Genji. Hog right side as well.
So right here, I popped Valk. I didn't get the value that I wanted, but the reason why I popped the Valk was because I wanted to keep both tanks alive so we could just stall out this point. Because it's easier to win a COD map if it's like 80% to 0 or like 60 to 0 and just sort of stack up on ult instead of like losing at 30%, then sort of taking it back, and then wasting like 5 fights of just back and forth. It's easier to just build up the ults and just win one big fight. But obviously, what happened here was the hog got discorded by their Zenyatta. He got hooked. Our hog got hooked, and he sort of got one shotted from 600 health. So we didn't get the value we wanted out of it, but that was my thought process in popping this ult. And also one of the reasons why I thought that hey, this ult would be worth using in this scenario is because Valkyrie's a very easy ult to build. So I assumed that there would be a lot of value if we could like stall it out for quite a bit, like 20% or 30. But unfortunate events did happen.
Let's just all soul as long as we can. Fuck, I shouldn't have ulted. It's alright though.
I didn't know the Pharah was above us there. If anybody
Yeah, I
knew,
actually didn't know either.
Yeah.
Yeah, my bad.
I didn't see it.
I thought I heard her all and I was like, shit.
Someone's lower. Someone's lower.
Yeah. It's Genji.
Find us. Right behind you. Right behind you.
Suck balls.
He's one.
Great job.
Hey, let's push him
Watch
up.
out for Farah Mercy. They're above us. Farah Mercy above. Standing down.
He missed his boob.
Barrier on point.
So right there, I looked back because I heard the McCree like make the grunt noise, the character himself. So I assumed that the Pharah actually hit a direct on him. So I looked around because I wanted to immediately heal him up, as I didn't want the Pharah to get like a second lucky shot or something and sort of kill him.
There's no
Getting into
forecast.
us.
He's fucking killing. I got
There's some Mercy above us.
Where are
I
you?
think. I'm not sure. Mercy right side. Nice baby, Zen. Back.
Move forward.
I was just going for a little bit of poke damage and whatnot because I saw the Pharah low. I actually see Slurp starting getting a melt here, so I try to like save him. He gets instantly killed, and I immediately go for a res because normally like whenever people get a pick, people always yell out guard the body because they assume the Mercy's going for it. Nobody really predicts that the Mercy's already there. So I just went for it to sort of like throw them off.
Farah can die. Too low.
Source, be careful.
Really low. Farah super. I got her.
Yeah.
And we raised hog. Good job.
My
Hold
bad.
forward.
I don't know what
Hold forward. We'll spam their spawn.
I think their Mercy might be seen.
They drop Pharah, so you have free reign run.
So the reason why I said free reign because they switched off the Pharah, but they switched to a McCree to counter the pharmacy. The reason why I said free reign is because their Pharah has actually been trying to focus on like getting in a 1v1 engagement against our Pharah. And our McCree was sort of also like firing up into him whenever he would poke out, so it would put a lot of pressure on the Pharah. And now Ren basically didn't have to worry about like using his abilities or watching out for the Pharaoh rockets and sort of just waste time on like staying alive. That he could actually now like know that alright, he only has McCree to worry about. He doesn't have to worry about a Pharaoh shooting rockets from any potential angle up in the sky. So that did give him more free roam.
They have him McCree.
Yeah, they're on my green now.
Back up. They're rapidly killing my shield.
Play point. Remember on Li Zhang, let them play into us.
Barrier back up. I'm about to run Bongo. Bongoing. Watch the
Watch your right, watch your right, watch your right, watch your right.
Oh shit, dude. I got 3 tap. My bad, my
Destroy
bad.
their Bongo. Shield down. Destroy Bongo. Okay.
So I just tried going for a res here because it's sort of like the same thing with the Roadhog. Like I didn't expect them to like be prepared for this res. I assumed that they would be focusing on everybody on the ground. Obviously, as you can see here, the Zen discords me and the McCree is looking right at me. So instead, what I was planning to do was I was planning on activating the res, but sort of like hovering, using her Guardian Angel to sort of like stay up there and sort of go for a res. But the moment I sort of take a first bullet, I immediately drop that and I just fly back to my team.
We destroy their Bongo. Nice job.
Good behind. Fuck.
That's fine.
You can red, you can red,
Transit,
red.
one transit.
No, I can't.
Move
No
her
run.
on.
Suckball going in. I suckball 3 of them together. Carrier on their side of point. Suckball going in.
Nice.
Nice job.
We're doing 3 rounds?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's a scrim.
Oh, okay.
Because you fail 3.
It's been a while since I've done a screen.
Well, you didn't do
Great
it
call
on.
on the Genji. Great call on the Genji. I wouldn't have known it was there.
I don't think we did it on PS4 though.
No, they didn't. No.
We just did
PS4.
shit to make it realistic.
Yeah, let's go back to dive. Let's switch to full dive.
Okay.
Should probably go straight on the left.
Or wait, what time do you get up in the morning?
Let's go right, and then let's jump onto them. I don't think we should go left.
Like 9
Okay.
or 8.
Alright?
We're going right and then jumping onto them.
I do homework.
Alright, so the reason I called that out specifically was because I sort of wanted to use our dive comp to its full potential, where I wanted to go out into the open and I want to look for anybody who's either out of position or was sort of on their own. So sort of like, for example, like this Genji on high ground. However, though he's not an ideal target because he could dash away, he could deflect, so I didn't call him out. So I called out and said, let's look for somebody who's out of position. Potentially like a Zenyatta or a Mercy or a soldier, and so on.
Okay, I see
Call out
Genji.
anybody out of position.
Oh, they're playing Ryan Hog.
Alright, so right now the hook just went through. He wasn't able to hook anything, and I sort of took this as sort of like our engagement as with the hook down essentially, they really don't have anything to like sort of CC our Winston other than a Lucio boop. So my assumption going into this was that our Winston sort of has free reign to do some work and sort of take advantage of that. So I immediately call in for a speed boost, hoping that we could take advantage of it, but sadly we weren't able to.
They're all, go hook, 3, 2, 1, speed boost, push into
Diving
them.
in.
Let's go.
Oh, I got that. I'm dead. Alright, damn.
Genji out of position on the left. I'm down.
Fuck, reset. They're gonna they're gonna a lot. They're gonna run that ball quite a bit.
So upon realizing the step ball, we actually made a huge mistake on this where we lost around 100-0 because of this. So they actually played this out really well. They sort of stayed on point and we refused to switch because of like it was a very awkward situation we felt like where it was they were playing on point. It's not very open for a Pharah. Junkrat isn't that strong on this point. It was very awkward. We weren't sure what to do because they were really bundled up together, and it did make things very awkward for us.
Genji's on her side. They're really far in. So they're probably out of position. We could probably counter them going real quick.
Not all
I'm
of
gonna
them
do
are here.
good discord on Genji.
No, we can't.
Their comp really revolves around them and Soldier right now. I got the Genji.
Alright,
Nice.
nice. Heal me up, heal me up.
Yeah.
Soldier's half, soldier's quarter.
Yeah, I can see you. Genji.
Don't in, they don't have hook.
I have an orb on you. Orbit.
Where are we on?
So I tried right there. The reason why I just got aggressive out of nowhere, was because I saw the Lucio and the soldier right next to the window. So my assumption was that if I could land a really good boop on them, I could boop them off the map. Now I don't know why the game didn't register it, but that was my thought process going into that.
I need healing. I need healing.
Dressing on point, go!
So after hearing the tac visor go off and like not being able to boop the soldier off, I decided to drop off behind because our diva got DMAC by their tac visor. Actually, she just ran out of defense matrix. So instead, what I tried to do was sort of like go around, go outside, maybe like lose some of the ult juice on it, and hopefully like re-engage on the point to help them out. But we did actually lose point because of this. Well, not because of that, but like they honestly just got so many picks, and because of the tac visor, it just came in and cleaned up a few things.
Get on point, get on point. Get the Ryan?
Ryan's low, guys. Ryan's low.
So
He
Lucio.
discorded.
Split up now.
Ryan's dead.
Down. The DPS
Lucio one.
the shit out of us.
I fed so hard, that's my bad. I shouldn't have bladed there, my bad. Actually,
Sorry.
we could go fair here if you wanted.
Yeah, fine, let's go for it.
Just spam them on point if you want. That's not the one.
Alright, well, I nearly have.
When we have our tank ults, we can go straight into point.
Alright, then 3, 2, 1, speed boost.
Jumping in.
So even though we switched to a Pharah and we didn't have six in here, with the Primal and the Diva Bomb, I thought that we could create enough space for us that our Pharah would be able to come in and sort of just spam rockets in the back or on the side while we're going through this. Because our Pharah, like as you can see, there's a rocket like right here, so she's not that far away. And with the tanks coming in first, everybody's gonna be sort of forced to look at them. If you look at it right now, sort of the Lucio's looking up, the Soldier's looking up, their Reinhardt's about to look up, and their Hog actually tries to look up too, and so is the Genji. Well,
Get on there, Lucio.
No. Hug no hook, hug no hook.
Find their Lucio, tail him. Lucio's on their side.
so right there, I was trying to hook the, I was trying not hook, I was trying to boop the Soldier 76 off the map, but it booped him into a wall, and I was hoping that maybe I could like get him to engage me outside potentially and get my boop back and try again. He actually does come out and starts outputting quite a bit of damage on me because he hit me with a Helix rocket, and I was able to, and then my goal was to buy enough time for them to either win on point or somebody on our team helping me out.
Lucio's on their side. Oh, I bumped Hog. No.
Oh no, he got back on the point. Yo, Moore's on point, no fade.
I have soldier on me, soldier 1.
I'm fucking eating. Sorry.
Lucio's. Down.
Fuck. I tried dropping me. It's alright, I'll go mercy.
Hey, you get the fuck out.
Oh shit, no, that's Brigade.
10%, guys. Vita's not going to be available during the open, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
Nice, we're on point.
On locker.
Bye. Dang, now I'm not gonna get any of my fucking highlight blades. Feels bad.
Alright, what map do we want to do?
So I'm just gonna end this. I'm gonna skip a little bit onto the third map we did, Dorado. And sort of like do a VOD review of that as well. So knowing that we still were pretty confident going into Dorado because obviously we did win 2 rounds compared to just the one, and we were able to make adjustments based off that. Um, so on like Dorado on their defensive hold, they tried that comp at the end what they ran, and we were able to more successfully counter it this time.
The Overwatch.
Wait. What do you mean, is it really? Two winners up top?
So they had a couple of substitutions. Cosmic couldn't stay. He had to go, and they had a guy named Volky come in. Um, so right now we're just on high ground. I'm just damage boosting a few of these guys. I started healing damage in case like any of them take poke damage. Um, and just about these teams, they are a 4K team. I don't know why. Majority of them were. They claimed that they're a 4K team, and apparently a lot of them were on Smurfs. This is this is our first time scrimming as a team. So we think we did well, but yeah.
The videos plural.
Barrier back up.
So that's a widow.
Barrier half.
Sit on the left.
Barrier mostly down.
Hey, back up,
Put
dude.
back up.
Barrier down. 3 seconds.
They have a widow?
Good range, yo. Get the monkey, get the monkey.
We're down one.
We have rest.
So I sort of went for a res immediately here because a lot of us were still here, and Jay was also right behind me, so he could harm me if needed. And essentially, it was only the Winston pushed up because the Diva ran away, and the Winston didn't have his DPS, so it wasn't like they were able to burst me down.
Help our
That
mercy.
monkey
Help our
then?
mercy.
I'm dead. I got Winston.
Dead too.
I got Lucio. Yo, we can
Genji
defect
behind,
that.
Genji behind, discorded, press.
Yeah, no DBS, so yeah.
It's only tanks and healers.
Watch out. They have sniper. Don't peek the sightlines. Barrier on fountain.
So I started playing around the fountain after I take that sniper bullet because I wanted to limit the Widow's sight lines on me so I could heal more people. Like I could damage boost and be in a safer position because of this.
Genji diving in. Genji no reflect. Genji no reflect.
Alright, they're all diving me.
Barrier up. Lucio 1. Lucio 1. Lucio 1.
Winston got me, no heal.
So so I started to notice that a lot of them were really pushed up, including the Mercy. The Mercy wasn't with the Widow in the back. So because of this, if we had a dive comp, we'd be more successful in diving their backline than they would be diving us because we would have a Zen along with a Mercy in our backline.
Dead.
Widow's in the back.
I'm going Genji. I think
Yeah.
we need time.
I was gonna fan him. So we're dead thing. Are we switching to dive?
Yeah.
Alright, switch to Tracer, but I'm gonna have late spawn.
That's fine.
Sorry.
Still on Genji.
They have walls.
You're up top. They got 3 Mercy, Genji, Tree, Diva up top, and they also have walls still. Widow's up top. I'm poisoned. Widow is. They're healing her.
Amazing. Get this monkey, just spread him.
Real charge.
Spread him.
Alright, we're on point right now?
Monkey,
Hey,
there's no
monkey
wall.
die. Monkey die.
Genji. Nice.
Just take my trans.
Yeah, Widow's dead too.
Diving in on Genji in the back. Genji is down.
Nice baby. Look to Lucio, look to.
Orbit. I can see you.
You have
Is he just
soldier
running?
now? Soldier instead of Widow?
So I try staying with Jay quite a bit for sort of like the same reason with Ilios, and this is going to be shown a lot. Because because the closer to the end of Ilios, they actually started diving Jay more and more. So essentially, going in this map with Jay on Zen, I knew they were going to dive him quite a bit, so I decided to stick with him more. And actually, because of this, Jay was able to do a lot because they were wasting so many resources into trying to kill him that we were able to abuse this.
You guys luck, guys.
All back now.
Get back on high ground. Leave the baby Diva, leave her.
So the reason why I want to leave Baby Diva alone, first of all, is because Diva is easy to build. Like her recall for the mech is easy to build, but it does take a little bit, and essentially if you fight with Diva in baby form, you're essentially fighting with like a tracer that has a mercy pistol with no blinks or recalls. So so she's pretty useless, I want to say, in this form. So essentially, because of that, they have to waste more time taking off the clock to like get her back in mech, or they can go back and spawn and they can switch to characters, which would essentially remove all her ult charge on self-destruct. So either way, this is a win-win. The reason why I was calling everybody back on high ground, because it's just easier for us overall to jump on them compared to us being on low ground and letting them be in the same position to jump on us.
Get back on high ground if you can.
This is what Jula said.
Jade. Jade here. Orbit, stop feeding. Soldier all the way in the back and pocketed by Mercy.
I just want to say this, all right? Me and Orbit go back like way back. We've been friends for like 2 years, like been on teams together for like 2 years. So like me and Orbit know each other, but we're still relatively new to this team. So I was just making a joke at Orbit. Like it was nothing like meant to be actually harmful.
Keep that in mind.
I'm behind him right now if you want to dive.
Was he gonna die?
I killed the Mercy. I
Wait,
killed the
wait,
Mercy.
wait, wait.
On point, David's on point.
Yeah.
Yeah, can we kill this Lucio?
On Lucio.
Nice, nice.
So I'm sort of playing around this bubble because just in case if like if anybody on their team just comes out of nowhere, I'm in a little bit of a safe position compared to like me flying all the way up. I think they keep pushing, so I actually fly up with them, but we essentially keep ourselves. I try to keep myself at a safe distance.
Genji no dash or deflect, we can kill him too.
They're healing him. They're healing him. And he's
That's
down.
it, that's it. We're out, we're out, we're out, we're out.
So essentially, I started getting afraid because their spawn was right there. We got a late pick onto Genji, so I felt like that's all we needed, and I completely backed up into high ground. And I do recall for everybody to jump on with us, so like recall like me doing it, telling them to get on so we can continue abusing high ground.
Back.
Back on high ground, back on high
We have
ground.
5 ults. Very good. What are we gonna use next?
Depends on what they use.
I'm gonna blade. I'm gonna blade.
I say. Okay, we're gonna.
No more Genji, please don't fair now. No more Genji.
Wait, did they always
Genji,
have
tell me when
Lucio
you're
or did
bleeding.
they
I'll
switch
dive
to
in for you.
Lucio?
I'll dive in and support you.
Did they always have Lucio or did they switch to him?
Go whenever you want to.
Nah,
I'm ready.
they always have. They're gonna have B. They're gonna have B.
Get on the monkey, get on the monkey. Monkey's
Monkey,
weak, monkey's weak.
monkey didn't die.
He just ran away from me. Yep.
Huge, huge bomb. Kill her, kill her.
Fair straight above us. Fair straight above.
So essentially, I just saw Jay really low there. Diva came in. Obviously, me and Orbit both went back. Probably only Orbit really needed to go back, but I decided to go back regardless to help him out. Then I came out and I immediately healed those. I healed our Genji and our Winston up right away.
Putting on the far up.
Guys,
Mercy no valve. Now.
So right there and then, so essentially 3 people are critical state. Our Winston, our Genji, and our Diva. So like I said, Diva's pretty useless out of mech. But the good thing about like Diva's mech is that if Diva gets demech, she's still alive. She's still there. She has a presence. If our Genji died, we'd essentially have to wait for him to come back from spawn. They had a Lucio, so speed boost, and Jay was healing the Winston. So we sort of left our Diva unhelped, sort of like unhealed, and that essentially got her to be demeched. But it was because out of 3 targets, Diva is probably like the one who can probably take the hit. Normally, like when there's a self-destruct on point and it's an overtime, it's normally like the Diva who stays on for this reason because she can actually get back in mech. Although like when she is in baby Diva, she is pretty vulnerable to multiple things. But I do believe that this was the best call.
Now we can kill her.
The Genji and Winston were low. It was,
Lucio's oversetting.
Can you res?
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, 5
Where did you die from? Oh, you got
Back up,
fucked.
back up, back up.
Yeah, it was funny.
I'm going soldier here. Okay, is that okay?
Yeah, fine. You can make that call. I trust it.
I'm
at Zen ult almost, so we can use that. I say we use it defensively.
Ren, just play on my body, though, because like if you need it, like if they die to me, you can drop a health pack.
They have no
Right.
DPS ult. Just saying. They might have pack actually. They might have pack.
Yeah, they buy.
Wait that out. Wait that out. We're on high ground. Wait that out.
Oh god, I got duped by Lucio into the.
It's fine, it's fine, it's fine.
Where's the tab?
So I essentially went for this res because I knew first of all I could get it, and with the trans up, I knew everybody would be healthy enough. So with our main tank back, he could stall it out long enough for me to get back. He could also help like Ren and Orbit stay organized on the DPS. I knew I was gonna die going for this res, but I took the overall potential value of it over that.
Help our Mercy now. Help our Mercy now.
I was hoping that would have a target to fly up to there, but I didn't coordinate that. That was a little bit on my mistake too. Like this is obviously a new team, so we do have like bad nerves like that, sadly.
I'll stall on cart.
Winnable.
Look at the monkey behind, literally free. Oh, never mind, not free anymore. Fuck.
No heals. No heals.
Alright, this one, we're dead. Oh, do you want to contest or no?
Probably
Do
not.
we have ult?
We have to trace ult.
All right, so the reason why I said no was because they got pretty close to it, and we only had a tank, DPS, and support and soldier coming in. So we didn't really have a full team, nor did we have enough people. We didn't have a Zen for Discord and Harmony, so that would just leave a lot of heals on me. Yeah, Diva right now has the Harmony on her, but Jay's pretty far back right now. Even if we go up, there's a good chance that maybe somebody might go ahead of us, and we'd be stuck on point. Jay would get staggered. Well, killed in our backline, we would get staggered. So essentially, I said that it would be better if we just fully backed out and regrouped.
We don't have any tank ults though. Because we were staggered, so there was no way we would have unless we sort of did something.
What I mean by sort of did something is just like did a hero play. And I don't like relying on hero plays because essentially then the team would become used to those. Like used to relying on those, and if our DPS or our tanks couldn't do a hero play, then it would be basically impossible for us to function on. So I try to avoid that as much as I can.
Winston.
Winston one.
Ready to jump in. Jump it in. A fair.
Fair one. Or she got healed, you know. Break bubble, break bubble.
Diva.
So I didn't want to pop I didn't want to pop Valk because of the tac visor, so I felt like I would have wasted it. Nor did I want to actually fly back because again of the tac visor, I felt like I would have been shot out midway. So I just played with the best interest of trying to keep Slurps alive, just contesting point long enough, because I knew we lost this fight, so we might as well shave off as much time from time clock as we possibly could.
Keep that on Mac.
Jump it on Diva.
I was in a bad position.
Shit.
I'm hiding.
I'm dying on part of here.
You guys just needed that.
We have
Yeah, let's. Sorry, yeah. This next fight will take.
Enemy visor.
I'm gonna have bomb as well.
Needs to go straight in on the point, so that soldier can be free.
They're pushing up. They're trying to.
We need to go straight in.
Try to focus Mac.
Alright, we have our ults. Going in. I'm on soldier.
So right now we're going in, obviously, like, Soldier was going on the left for better positioning, but he would be gone for a few seconds of the fight, and our Zen was just coming out. So we were going into this, not with a complete deficit, but at least we're a, like, 10 seconds, and like, not 10, like 5 second deficit of like 2 people. So instead I decided to just pop Valk to sort of like help, sort of like multi-heal everybody on point and sort of just keep our sustain long enough for our Zen to come into the fight and our soldier to get better positioning in the fight.
Nice job.
So the moment Ren pops tack and like he pops out, immediately start damage boosting him so he can quickly burst down targets.
Mercy by the monkey. Inside point.
Mercy one.
Down. Bottom left. Lots from bottom left.
I decided to go for a res because in Valk, instead of like the 1 second after no damage healing, you just start healing immediately. So I decided to just immediately put that in and sort of like take value of that, as we already did win fight.
Yo, D-Mac the Diva, D-Mac.
First one, I'm switching again.
Where are you switching to?
Probably Genji.
Alright, then we don't have anything for the Pharaoh.
No, I go Crimson. It's just soldier one.
I go respond. I put some help on you. Thanks. Any soldiers going in the left?
He's rocket, okay. Get the monkey, get the monkey, get the monkey. You can shred him, easy, easy.
Monkey's speeding, monkey's speeding.
Good actually.
Mercy one.
Mercy.
I got you, healing you.
Yo, D-Mac, D-Mac. Oh, so close.
Get him, McCree, get him. Nice.
Twigs. So I was gonna try to like res our tracer, but I didn't do it because like because I was a little bit afraid of going out and getting picked by something. So I didn't, and by the time I got there, she already got respawned.
He's on the left.
They switch off there.
Yeah, let's back up here.
There's just oh, okay, good Genji.
They're walking around.
They're
Is he
they
so
coming
far
out?
from the primary area?
Alright, they should have visor again, should they?
Yeah, probably.
What's in Discord?
Oh, he messed up Diva bomb.
So I was just trying to back up in the 75 health pack. I sort of like hit a wall because I wasn't looking behind because I don't want to get taken off guard. But after like this tac visor, I'm just sort of like hiding up here on purpose, just so long enough for the tac visor to actually go away and we can sort of like re-engage and sort of abuse it.
I'm low here.
Lucio 1, bottom left.
They're on mech.
I was in a pretty safe position, so I just tried to go for the res right here that I know I could get off.
McCree's half? Or not McCree wins?
What's up on cart? Down. Lucio lit.
And right now it's the final fight. We already have a lot of picks in the fight, so I don't really see a need to heal right now. So I just stay on damage boost, like honestly, for the majority of like the ending of this fight.
Get Winston, get Winston. I'm transing.
I'm damage boosting if you're around the cart.
I didn't know you were high nooning my bad.
Moth. I'm just.
A mob. Here, restart the game, Marco. I mean, Mega.
Yeah.
Just wait till we switch sides.
I'll get in the hood.
Yeah, why would we restart?
Yeah.
So we can play the full map.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I got you.
Oh, was it on quick play?
No.
No.
It was just saving.
Because like they would push it to where we pushed it. I mean, we would push it to where they
We
pushed
stopped
it. We
it,
would
stopped
win.
it.
We want to play the full map. They didn't complete it.
Scrims are about practice.
Yeah, you practice the full map, but you're not practicing to see who's better or what. If that's the
Yeah.
case, we can get Scrim
I mean, I
against
guess,
Diamond
but
right now.
I was gonna say it's pretty close to that.
No, if
already.
anything, that's more important. Like, that's closer to their spawn. We should be able to deal with staggers and whatnot. That's actually a good practice.
And then also it was on like halfway.
I'm not against it.
I like just practicing like regular competitive games. I don't like just starting. Because you don't get like the same kind of behaviors.
Well, I mean,
You do.
Well,
we
yeah,
just
you
feel
do.
like, well, this is how far we put it. We would have beaten them. It's like, oh, okay, that's it.
Yeah, but they aren't
Like-
playing for that.
like
They're
for-
playing
No,
like
we're playing to complete the map.
Yeah,
This is a scrim.
we're practicing. We're playing it so we can practice the full map.
we're improving as
Doesn't
much
make
as
any
we can.
Sort of like this, okay? It's sort of like take the King of the Hill, alright? Like, let's say we did on King of the Hill on 2 rounds. Like, we win 2 rounds and then boom, every time. We never played the third map. And because of that, in an actual game, if we ever played the third map, we'd lose. Because we never scrim it.
No, that's nonsense. King of the Hill is separated into different stages, so
Wait,
Doesn't work.
I had no idea what my teammate was on about.
Like,
Widow's top right. Widow's top
They
right.
widow John.
yeah. They have
Yeah, they
Ryan.
also have their poison up there, by the way. That's interesting.
I see it. I'm like,
They have
Ryan.
emergency.
They have Widow junk out for their DPS line.
Running Diva
Let's
Ryan.
not jump on them. Let's not jump on them. Let's wait until they drop.
So essentially, because of the Diva, Reinhardt, Junkrat, like if we used our dive pump to actually jump on them, we would get annihilated. So I did want them to drop a little bit, so we're little bit on even footing, so we could fully jump to their back line. Because right now, the way they're positioned, we'd have to jump into their front line.
Wait for it. Wait for it. Alright, they're dropping. They're dropping. Alright, 3, 2, 1. Speed boost. Let's jump in.
So I sort of didn't move with them because I sort of wanted to make sure that Jay would stay alive and that like somebody was on card.
Come on, Widow. Can I get that Mercy? Mercy one in the middle of them.
31.
Using that blind pumping. Huge.
Nice. Big, huge. Ryan.
Backboards. That's on the backboard.
Ryan top.
There's one. Absolute.
I can't kill him.
no, I can't see him.
Orbit, I mean, fucking mega fuck. I'm retarded.
So right there, like I knew I was in a position where I could get out because of the walls surrounding the Zen. So I just decided to go for it. Their diva actually helped me out quite a bit booping in. So right now I hear the Riptire and I know it's on the left side. So I decide to try to go for it, but the Junkrat actually comes back to kill me.
Tiring.
I don't know where it's at.
Ryan, yeah, kill Ryan.
Jump top.
Diva's one.
Widow's
So
back.
Zen-
Widow's on high ground. Next to
Widow.
next. Zen's back. Not Zen. Ryan.
I'm not running over.
I need healing back.
Okay.
Thank you. Mercy one.
Next one.
Jump. Zen. Everyone on Zen.
Okay. Ah! Get a car! Oh, okay, my bad.
Oh shit, there were this way.
Sorry.
So I just saw the Zen there on his own. Like I said, Zen. I feel like, well, not I said. But in my opinion, like Zen's one of the Zen doesn't have a lot of mobility as a support that makes him generally seem weaker than others, but like obviously he's a pretty good staggered pick against their comp as like they rely a lot on it. The Genji and the Diva definitely do, as the Discords just help them burn through so many targets so much quicker. So obviously just going for that pick would be huge. Ren was able to help me out, but obviously he did feed. Well, not feed, but like we traded Ren for like their Zen, which was actually in our benefit because our spawn's way closer than theirs.
They got close.
C9.
Did they have walls?
C9.
Because that Zen predicted me.
I mean, it wasn't hard.
Were you Venoms?
I don't know. She might have walls. She hasn't popped it yet. She might have actually. I wasn't paying attention.
What does
No kill cam to this Scrim solo.
They have Genji now.
Run no bird.
There's some
Wait, 3, 2, 1. Speed boost. Get mercy. Doesn't matter.
So obviously, like with the huge pick on on the Zen, the Mercy immediately went for the res. So she would be in a very weak spot. So I immediately called out for the speed boost so we could sort of abuse this. After killing her, we immediately focused on the Rhine, and that sort of just helped us was sort of like win this fight easily.
Shatter on card.
Jumping on Zen under the bridge.
Widow in the back. Be careful. Nice.
What is that?
Baby Diva. Get
Might
Baby
be dead.
Diva. Nice.
So obviously I was trying to focus the Zen because I don't want the Zen to sort of get like a Discord and a lucky volley on anyone to sort of keep on the fight, but their Widow did pick me off. And I started calling off the Baby Diva because I saw she ulted. So essentially if we kept her alive for a few more seconds, she would have gone back into her mech and potentially all these this huge fight that we won, these picks that we got could have been essentially been for nothing if she could have stalled out for like 10 seconds and then get everyone back together.
Okay, I'm okay.
Jumping on Genji in the back.
Genji.
Come on, get you with you.
I like bum killed you. Unlucky.
Yeah, dude, it was coming for it, so I tried to make a risky move and it didn't pay off. Missed the hook.
I can't heal you guys up there. Huge orbit.
It's okay, we're getting tons of picks. Hit Zen next.
Moving forward.
Looking into you.
Orbit, pick me a little bit. I got
Yeah,
Norb on
we
you,
got
but
Nice.
That's one.
So I sort of just amped it up on heals because I didn't know if like Orbit was gonna run back into cover and he needed a little bit of heals. If anybody was about to push up maybe onto slurps or anything like that. So I decided to play it safe and just amp it up on heals instead.
We're gonna pocket you, okay?
Okay.
I'm gonna push up a little bit. Go.
I gotta get my flanks. I have no
We
flanks.
don't have Winston, by the way. We don't have Winston. Do we have an AFK?
Run.
No, that's just our widow in the back.
Where's their widow? Call it out if you see her.
I don't see
She's
it.
on the far
No,
back.
No,
Tracer.
they don't
Far
have widow.
back.
Oh, they switch.
They switch.
Genji now. Tracer.
They're jumping. Winston to lead.
Wait. I'm about to call out a jump. Are we ready?
Ready?
Yeah.
Alright, 3.
So essentially, I didn't want because I didn't know if everybody was ready or not. So I sort of wanted to call it down because I felt like Ren was still in a weird position. I didn't feel like I didn't feel like we were ready for it. So instead, I wanted to call it down. Luckily, actually, they popped trance, so I did speed boost, but I speed boosted us out. But we actually counter trance, then went back in.
Wait, back up. Oh, fuck.
Mercy one again.
I'm ready to jump. I'm jumping on Mercy. Mercy one.
Mercy dead.
Monkey, we can cart.
Focus up.
Throw on you.
Diva.
Genji in our back line. Killed me and Widow.
Everyone Genji.
Big target.
Where's Baby Diva?
He's up top.
Down she goes.
Yeah, baby's dead.
Lucio on the left.
Keep pushing cart though.
Any heals?
Shinker.
He's out of heals, I think.
Alright. Alright, we're coming in on the last stage. They have.
So over here at this point, I'm about to switch to Mercy again, like I did on Ilios, and it's sort of like for the same reason. You know, we sort of have res, so if they get any picks, we can sort of just res and sort of remove their picks. I felt like we didn't have a lot of healing, and we're going into this last point too, which is so close to respawn, so staggers are really strong. So they could stagger in and stall out really well. So essentially, the Mercy sort of helps us deal with all of that with the damage boost, the res. If I could get a Valk off, then we'll just win off like from the chain healing and damage boost. That was my thought process going into this point.
Really good like spawns. I'm gonna go Mercy for res and the outburst of heals. She's still pretty
Tracer's
strong.
one.
Our Zen is staggered. We're gonna be a long time until the first just hold it through.
It's alright.
Thank you for the
Okay, we
heals.
got monkey ult, but nothing else. I think we can just do a dry run and build for ults. Try to bait their ults out. What do
I
they
don't think they
I
have.
don't know if they have any.
They use false home.
Did they blade?
have? Well, let's just do
They
a
played
dry
it.
run.
They have no ults. Play it out like an actual fight.
They might have Valk, but that's it.
I'll bait pushing the cart forward. Well, they're not on cart, so I can just contest it.
Genji might go for me. Genji, they're on me. Snipers are on me.
I'm on you. I'm trying to heal you.
I shot the Tracer. Tree called. Tracer one on cart.
Lucio lit.
Look at Winston popped.
Can we shut him?
Trying to.
I'm gonna blade here in a second.
I shot the Tracer. We called.
Jay, where are you? Alright, there you go.
Fire on. Lucio down.
Genji on me again.
Better man.
I can't see you, Jay.
I'm zoning their Mercy out.
And essentially, I just wanted to keep Jay alive because of like just that thing again. Because the way everybody was playing it out, like they were focusing so much on him again that like we just kept abusing this over and over again. So I wanted to keep doing this, because they were at no point like keeping track of anything whenever they saw the Zen.
Hit Diva.
Baby.
Mercy up top. Mercy on the.
I don't even know what was there. I shot her. Got her.
Hey, it's
Alright,
baby.
keep focused. I'm damn boosting all of you.
Nobody call?
Genji now.
What? I was
So basically, with the trance protecting me 300 heals per second, the Genji wouldn't be able to do enough damage with Blade to burst me down. So I decided to go for the res.
Shot you. No, he can one shot you with the slash and the dash. Monkey. Diva on me back.
I can't see you.
C9. Fight on cart. C9. Fight on cart.
Mercy one. Nice, baby.
Nice guys.
Good practice. Big.
and that was sort of like the entire scrim. Like those were for like those two maps. We did Nambani, then we did Hanamura, and then we ended it. Um, so essentially that was sort of like my VOD submission for the Harrison University scholarship, varsity esports scholarship. Thank you for your time and goodbye.